Thank you so much. Good evening. I'm ecstatic to be here, actually. Yeah, I know so many of you in the room. It's kind of funny, but where's Joyce? There's Joyce. See, right in the center, as usual. So Joyce was pointing out to me that, my association with NC State goes all the way back to 1978. So 30 years ago, I came here as a junior in high school, and they brought in maybe 30 high school juniors, and this was back when the 8080 processor was just coming out, a little tiny 8-bit processor, and that, it was really an interesting time in computer science history. There was a computing center where you punched cards and you fed them, to a person behind a desk, and your program would get executed, and you'd come back 2 hours later to get a printout. There was these little microprocessors that were getting ready to change the world and stuff. It just was, that was a pivotal thing for me. And then I came here for my master's degree. I learned how to teach here. When we started HowStuffWorks, we were in an incubator over in Venture 2, I think, or Venture 1. One of those buildings had a floor that was an incubator for small companies. So I was here for that. And it seems like huge parts of my life are actually cross-linked with NC State. So like I said, I'm just ecstatic to be here. And I was given free rein on what to talk about. So what I thought I would talk about is sort of a biographical as well as hopefully inspirational talk on becoming an accidental entrepreneur. So what I'm going to specifically talk to you about today, and my kind of goal in being here, is that I'm going to encourage you to start your own business. And I'm going to talk about how I've started several businesses. And I do this a lot. I talk to a lot of people, mostly one-on-one, who are trying to start businesses and they're stuck for one reason or another. I've been called the patron saint of especially folks in Raleigh who are stuck trying to start businesses. Somehow they find me, and I talk to them and try to get them unstuck, try to get them in motion and help them get their thing, their idea, whatever it is, going. And so I want to talk just a little bit about that today. My biggest problem is that I could talk till next weekend about this, so I'm going to try to compress it into a small package. I know, I, as badly as you, want to know who won this election, so I'm very cognizant of that, and so I will get us out of here by 7. But I will just say, if you have additional questions or want to talk or something, you can come to marshallbrain.com, and there's contact information at the bottom of the homepage, and you can contact me. So let's say I say to a typical person, you should start your own business, just any random person off the street. When I say that to people, lots of people panic, and they panic with legitimate reason, and some of the things they will say is, this is the most common thing: I don't know how to start a business, or it is so hard to start a business, or I've never done it before, I don't know where to start with a business. There's if you've never done it before, it's a little frightening, so that's a standard common feeling. This is the second one. I don't have any money or enough money or the $3 million I need to start a business. This actually is a total fallacy. We'll talk about this quite a bit. You don't need any money to start a business, it turns out. But there's an impression that if you don't have money, you can't possibly do anything. So this is an obstacle. And then this third one. I'm going to fail if I start a business, or I'm going to make a mistake if I start a business. And at this exact moment, I'm realizing I left a prop in my car, so such is life. But today, see, there's a mistake, right? I have 3 props, and they're all sitting in the car. So, well, let's take this first one. I will fail if I start a business. Yes, you will. This is actually a good thing, and we'll talk about that. Failure is absolutely a part of this process, and it's actually a good part of the process. You have to embrace failure. You have to love failure in order for this to work. But if you can get your head around that, this actually works in your favor. The mistake-making part, the thing I have in my car is a sheet of paper that today, 2 companies, 2 huge publicly traded companies, made a big blunder today. One was Starbucks and the other was Krispy Kreme. They both had free offers today. Come, bring, this is embarrassing too, but bring your I voted sticker. You can see I live multiple lives, and I had to take the kids to the voting place today. So I actually have like 5 I voted stickers that the kids all gave me. So come, bring your I voted sticker, and we'll give you a free coffee or a free donut. Okay, it turns out that in many states, including Georgia, that's completely illegal. It's a felony offense to offer somebody a prize, any kind of payment, anything. A coffee counts for voting because you have bribed this person to vote. So, in the article I had the actual Georgia statute. So it's not a misdemeanor, it's not, a slap on the wrist, it's actually a felony offense to give someone something in return for voting. So even giant companies with huge staffs of lawyers and all this corporate process and everything, they still make mistakes. So that's all right as well. The thing we have to do is break through these objections so that you can kind of get over the hurdle of obstruction to neutrality, and then we have to give you a reason why you would want to start a business and why this actually is a noble pursuit. So there is this fact. Our economy in the United States, right now, we are embedded inside an economy that is worth more than $10 trillion every year. I think in 2007 it was 14 trillion or something. The number goes up a little bit every year. So it's 13 or 14 trillion dollars. So that means that, somebody paid for this mouse. It's a nice mouse. It's a Dell, XYZ 10 mouse. Someone probably paid $20 for this. Okay? That $20 was, 0.0000001% of the $13 trillion that made up our economy. Everybody in this room participates, is a part of that number. Every time we buy anything, that number gets a little bit bigger. That is the economy we live inside of. It's all around us. It's probably more pervasive than the natural environment at this point. We live embedded inside this economic engine. And if you start a business, you have a way to tap into all that money that's changing hands. So if you think about how many transactions it takes to add up to 10 trillion, it's a lot of transactions. If you start a business, you get to hook in to that cash stream. And what you're trying to do is get just any little tiny fraction, like 0.001% of that to flow your way, and you have a valid business. You have, if it's, 5 zeros and a 1 on that number, I think that's $1 million business. You don't have to get very much of that to flow your way, and it's a big amount of money. So a reason to start a business is it gives you a way to tap into this huge environment that we live inside of, and the environment happens to be made out of money, and you can get a little bit of that to flow your way. That's kind of the reason for doing it. Besides that, besides the money, a reason to start a business is because it's just interesting. Fun, exciting, challenging, whatever. It's just an interesting place to work. How many of you play games like World of Warcraft or something like that? I don't believe it. How many of you play any computer games? Forget World of Warcraft. See, that's better. Okay. There's probably an age-related split there or something. But I'm talking to you guys who play video games primarily. So it's, you play video games because they're fun, exciting, challenging, but rarely do you get money in return for the effort you expend on video games. The cool thing about business is it's fun, exciting, challenging, and if you win the game, this big slot machine dumps money on the table for you. Okay, it's not like video games. So you can invest time in video games to get your fun, excitement, and challenge, or you can invest time in this big slot machine that really produces real money. That's a reason to think about business. You get to meet lots of people. Lots of really interesting people. Like, in general, the folks working in business environments are motivated, interesting, educated, fun people. They are trying to accomplish something. They have a goal in mind and they're heading toward it. And so you get to meet and interact with these kind of folks. And then it's a constant learning process. I know a lot of people like video games, for example, because you're learning. You come into whatever game for the first time, Gears of War or whatever, and you get to learn. You don't know anything about the environment. You don't know how to do anything in the environment, and you're going to spend 50 or 100 or 200 hours learning that environment, and that's exciting to a lot of people. I mean, why do you come to college? You come because you like learning. Well, the business environment, it's constant. No matter what level you get to, there's 1,000 levels above that. And if you get to the top level, like you're Bill Gates or somebody like that, you can just invent new levels above that. And the slot machine just pays out more money as you go up these levels. So it's like this constant excitement, whatever, for learning. And then, yes, you can make a lot of money. If you can figure out this game, this particular game, you get to put money in your pocket. That's the one thing that makes this unique. There's not necessarily a lot of other things that work that way. So, you have this question, how much money? I just went on to Yahoo Finance today and I typed in a couple of stock symbols. So these are their valuation today. This is after the stock market has pummeled these with sledgehammers for the last 6 months. Netflix today is $1.4 billion. That's its market cap. So if you took all of Netflix's stock and you just could turn it into cash today, at today's value, it was worth $1.4 billion. Amazon, $24 billion. eBay, $20 billion. Papa John's, $645 million for a pizza joint. I mean, think how much money $645 million is. It's a lot of money. So, and look at all four of these businesses. I mean, these are all highly competent, incredibly organized, well-run businesses. But the core idea, just think about the core idea. Netflix. You pay us $20 a month, and we'll mail you some DVDs. And when you mail them back, we'll mail you another one. Okay, not a complicated business idea. Amazon, we've got big warehouses. You send us an order, and we'll ship you something. Okay, not complicated. eBay, we don't even have big warehouses. Somebody else has the warehouse or the shelf or whatever. We just get in the middle of the transaction, and we suck like this huge amount of money out of the transaction. We don't do anything, technically. I mean, we're just there in the middle. And that's really diminishing them, because being in the middle is where you want to be. I mean, that's genius to have gotten into that position. And then Papa John's, we bake pizzas when people tell us to, and they pay them, they pay us for them. These aren't complicated business ideas. Papa John's is not an original business idea. I mean, how many pizza joints are there? There's, Pizza Hut and Little Caesars and Domino's and Pizza Inn and DiGiorno's and Freshetta. I don't even know all the frozen Tombstone. There's so many pizza variations. These aren't complicated ideas. So the thing is that all of these started with one person and an idea and a little bit of motivation. And eBay literally started with one guy. A lot of businesses. I went to the Leatherman company a couple months ago and saw how they make, the little knife tool plier things that Leatherman makes. That was one guy. He said, wow, I would like to have a wrench and a knife, or pliers and a knife together. And so, in his basement, with a friend, he built a prototype. He just basically, you can imagine a blacksmith, he just beat on metal with a hammer and got the shapes he wanted, and he got it riveted together. And they have the original one, it's handmade. It's literally this guy stamped and beat and riveted, and there's your first Leatherman. And then he figured out how to get it produced, in some kind of quantity. And then he took it around and tried to sell the thing. And no one would take an order. I don't want your plier knife thing. I think it's a stupid idea. Over and over again. And that happens constantly in the world of business. The woman who wrote Harry Potter took it to 3 publishers, all of whom told her she was crazy for thinking anybody would read the book Harry Potter. They rejected her, and she finally found somebody. But Mr. Leatherman, it's a person, took the knife, and he finally got this one mail order catalog to take an order for 200 or 500 of the things. And they put in their catalog, and it sold out. Just bang. Instantly, they knew there was this whole new product niche. Okay, did anybody know that product niche existed before he hammered this thing together and riveted it and took it around and got rejected 20 times or however many times and finally got somebody to carry it? No one knew the marketplace wanted this. But he took the time to make it happen, and he got the product out. So he, Mr. Leatherman, is a good example of what I call an accidental entrepreneur. He was not an entrepreneur to begin with. In fact, he may not have even been intending to be an entrepreneur, but he had an idea. He played with the idea, probably because he found it entertaining to just build the one, realized that it was a good idea, took it to another level, played with it, took it to another level, and eventually, now it's a whole gigantic company. They have a factory in Oregon, I believe, that 15, 20 acres of space to build these little Leatherman tools. It's startling how many people love that tool and use it. He started as a normal person, a non-entrepreneur. I don't have any grand plans, nothing. He became an accidental entrepreneur. So I can give you several examples from my life as illustrations of this process. The first example started here, actually in Daniels Hall. See, this is such ancient history that I'm going to abbreviate it, but we were switching computer systems. We had just installed what was then called EOS. I don't know if it's still called EOS or not. Is it still called EOS? Okay, so imagine you're going from this hodgepodge of really bad floppy disk-based computer technology to, so every student had a little box of 5 1/4 inch floppy disks, and that was what they plugged that into the machine, and that disk had the operating system on it and the programming language and their homework, all of that floppy disk. That was where we came from to EOS, which was going to be, Unix workstations all networked together with graphical user interfaces and stuff. It was a really monumental change. So I was going to be teaching students on this new system, so over the summer, I wrote a set of tutorials on how to program for EOS. Okay? They were, it was maybe, if you were to print it out, it was maybe 50 pages of how to write graphical programs for this new computer system, so that when the students came in the fall, I would be able to get them going quickly enough that we could get anything done in a semester, because it was a new, completely new system, completely new graphical programming system. It was called Motif. So I wrote the tutorials. This was before the web, so I put them on an FTP site, and people downloaded them for free. That was it. And the only reason I put it on the FTP site was so the students could get to it. Well, this thing took on a little life of its own, and it made it to a whole bunch of college campuses, and it spread, probably all around the world, I don't know. But it actually happened to make it to publishers as well. And so there came a week where 2 publishers actually called me up and said, hey, we love your tutorials, we'd like you to flesh it out into a book, and here's a contract. That's how I got to write my first book, was by accident. Like, I didn't have any grand plan to write a book on Motif programming. I didn't have anything at all, really. It just happened that I created this set of tutorials, and some stuff happened, and a contract landed on my desk, and I wrote the book, and it got published. Okay? Started in Daniels Hall here. So the book now goes out into the world, and it turns out that at that exact moment in history, totally coincidentally, all of Wall Street was transferring from IBM and whatever mainframes to Unix systems running Motif. Okay, what's the chance of that? It's total random event. Was it predicted? I hadn't had the intention of even writing this book the year before. No plan, no nothing. But suddenly, I start getting calls from people who want me to come teach Motif programming to corporate audiences. Like, it's funny, one of these audiences was Lehman Brothers. Lehman Brothers. I didn't really realize that until just this moment. But lots of firms on Wall Street, Goldman Sachs, Lehman Brothers, Morgan Stanley, they have or had huge programming staff. I think Lehman Brothers had 800 programmers. They all were transitioning from mainframes to workstations. They all had to learn Motif and other stuff about Unix. And I had this great calling card, a book. It turns out a book gives you instant credibility. Even if a year before you knew nothing about it, now you're an expert because you have a book. So I left NC State. Just coincidentally, NC State was wanting to kick me out at the same time, so it perfectly aligned in this way. And I had a friend, and with this friend, we decided we're going to go into business, and we're going to try to start a consulting company, and we're going to try to sell classes to Wall Street places and do programming and stuff. Now, how much business experience did we have? We had none. How much startup capital did we have? We had $200 each. How much stuff did we have? We had his PC. I didn't own a computer, but I had the book. So we had his PC, my book, $400, no experience, and we said, we're going to just do this for the summer, and we're going to see what happens. That's accidental. I mean, that is as accidental. You just go out and try it. But it turned out it worked because that book acted as a calling card. It acted as credibility. We taught hundreds of classes on Wall Street, and Wall Street pays really well for classes. I mean, it's amazing how much they'll pay for a class. And so we did all these classes, we did consulting, we wrote software, we did all kinds of stuff, and we built that up when I left, it was making about $3 million a year, and we had 20 or 25 employees, and it was a really cool little boutique company. So another example is HowStuffWorks. HowStuffWorks started because when I got done with my 8th book, I was tired of writing books. The problem with books is you have to write the whole thing before you can publish it. And you want, it's a 400-page long book, you have to write 400 pages. And then you have to send it out for publication. It takes time, you have to index it, and if you've ever indexed a book, that's just terrible. It's a lot of work to index a book. So I said, okay, I'm going to do something. I don't want to write a book, but there's this new thing, the internet, the web. I'm going to try something on the web and see what happens, because I can write just a little bit at a time. So you write one article and you put it out on the web, and that day you really know if anybody cares or not about what you just wrote. And you're publishing to the entire world. It's amazing. The web still stuns me. So I wrote an article. It was called How Engines Work. And I did a little logo, and I took some little pictures, and I formatted it in the simplest HTML you've ever seen, and I stuck it on the internet, and no one cared, which is exactly what I expected. But I really enjoyed writing that article. It was fun, and it was interesting, and I actually learned how little I knew about engines in the process of writing that article, and I got to go learn a lot to do it. So I wrote another one, and I would just write articles about what interested me. I'd look around the house and I'd say, wow, there's a pendulum clock on the wall. How does that work? And I knew in general, well, there's a pendulum and it swings back and forth. That's how it works. But, why does it work that way? And what are all the gears for? And, all the stuff, the interesting stuff about it, I got to learn, and I enjoyed that. Well, after I got about 20 of these articles written, something happened. And the cool thing about the web is you can get data. You all know this. So the traffic started to go like this. There was like a critical mass point for that collection of articles. And blah, blah, blah. And today, 10 million people look at it every month, and they read like 100 million pages or something like that. And if you make just a tiny little bit of money off of every one of those 100 million pages and you multiply it, you get to suck a little bit out of that $10 trillion cash stream that's flowing around, and you have a business. Okay? How did I write my first book? It was totally accidentally. How did I start teaching on Wall Street? It was totally accidental. How did HowStuffWorks start? I just wrote a couple of articles. And I think the essence of the message I want to deliver to you today is that in my experience, and in the experience of lots and lots of people who have started businesses, if you just do something, a lot of times, accidentally, stuff happens out of that. So, if you just sit around and watch television all day, it's not going to happen. And if you play video games all day, it's not going to happen. But if you do something that's an act of creative will, like some expression of your creative self, whatever it is, there is some probability that it will accidentally turn into a business. And I don't know why that is. I don't know how some guy is trading Pez dispensers and it turns into a $20 billion company. I don't know how that happens. I don't know how me writing a couple articles on the internet turns into a company that gets bought for hundreds of millions of dollars. I don't know how that happens. I don't know lots of stuff, but I know that if you take the step of saying to yourself, I think it might be interesting to think about starting a business, and I think this might be an interesting thing to do. Or even if you don't have that intention of starting a business, but you just do something creative. You write something, or you build something, or you organize some people together to accomplish something, or what, you just do anything creative, then it somehow opens a lock on a door that swings wide and other things start to happen. And like I said, I don't understand how it happens, but accidentally, lots of people fall into this and they become entrepreneurs. So let's say you wanted to start this process. How would you get started? Here it is in 4 steps. You come up with some kind of idea. We will talk about that in detail. You manifest the idea in some form. That is, you do something creative and motivated to say, this idea I'm going to embody in our physical universe so that other people can experience it. You make the idea appear in some form. You find out if anyone cares. Now, I can show you, from my own experience, hundreds of ideas, both silly and profound, that no one else cares about, or that just a tiny number of people care about, or a little niche audience, and it couldn't grow into anything bigger. But you find out if anyone cares, and then you either abandon it, or if you still think it's a good idea but it just isn't working, you try to tweak it into something that people will use, or if you have something that's working, you try to grow it. And there's this really funny thing about business plans, that when you talk about growing it, one thing I've noticed about business plans is that, you know, there are people who go to start great big huge enterprises, like, you know, a whole airline or something like that, or they're going to build a power plant or something. There's big business ideas that are planned and funded with hundreds of millions of dollars, and then there's, you know, middle businesses, people starting restaurants and franchises and stuff like that. And then there's little ideas where you don't have any plan at all. But no matter what it is, no matter what level you're working at, you come up with this whole big business plan, and then, in general, nothing in your business plan works out the way you thought it would. It has, like, your plan was a way of collecting your ideas and stuff, but when reality hits it, when you find out if anyone cares, they often care about something completely different, or twisted around in a way you never thought of, or, you know, when Netflix started, they sold DVDs. They don't sell DVDs now because it turned out that wasn't a great way to make money. It was much easier to just ship these DVDs back and forth to people and make that recurring revenue thing, which is something you hear a lot about if you start studying business. So I mean, how do you come up with this idea? This is the hardest part for a lot of people. And I want the 10-word description, and I can't. But you're going to start a business. Let's say you say to yourself, I want to start a business. You have a goal that you'd like to tap into this network of money that's flowing around. You need some kind of idea to get started with. So I've talked to hundreds of people who will say to me, I don't have any idea what to do, what idea to start with. So here are 3 starting points. One is to just go look at an existing idea and copy it, like start another pizza restaurant. Just say, I like the fact that Papa John's is making $645 million as their valuation. I think it would be cool to create something like that. I'm going to start a pizza restaurant. And you tweak pizza making in some way, or pizza delivery or something. You just copy an existing idea and make it a little different or a little better or a little better fit for a niche audience or something like that. You solve a simple problem. You look out at the universe and you look for a problem that you can solve, and you try to come up with a way to solve it. Yesterday, the kids and I, we sit around, we think about business ideas a lot. I have 4 kids. We're sorting socks, okay? How long have people been wearing socks? A while, okay? Let's say 200 years, I don't know, they go back pretty far. You put them in the dryer. I got 4 kids. 2 of them are twins, so their socks are the same, but that's 3 different sizes of socks. girl socks, big boy socks, little boy socks, my socks, and my wife's socks. We have 5 different kinds of socks, and we're sitting there wasting how many hours of our lives sorting socks so that we can put them. Someone has to solve this problem. I mean, it's just not that hard. I don't care if it's a robot that sorts the socks, or it's color coding, or it's magnets, or something. Find a simple little problem like that. We all have socks. I mean, how many of us are wearing socks today? How many? I'm wearing socks. Here they are. Like, they're white. Why? Because I couldn't find black socks today. So we have socks. Just find something really simple. And you can do that just as you walk around. If you tune your mind to this, if you make this a game, like, how many simple problems can I see today that could be solved? It's just startling if you actually start to make a game of it. That's what I mean. The kids and I will sit around and try to just see simple problems so that they can be solved. Or you're at a research university. You can go big and come up with a breakthrough technology that's totally going to revolutionize the planet by, bifurcating the oscillating something. I don't know. You're here. You can try to do the big, super creative invention. There's all sorts of ways. So come up with ideas. Just start a notebook or index cards or have a file on your laptop or whatever, a blog. Do something and just start listing ideas. And after about 2 weeks, you'll have 100 of them. I swear, if you sit and just make a game out of this, and think of things from that, could I start a business that does blank standpoint? You will come up with a list of 100 ideas in not that long a period of time. Okay? And now you pick one of those, and you pick the one that's most interesting to you. You pick the one that you think has the highest probability of success. You pick the one that you think might get you a date. I mean, just pick a criteria. Just pick one. And then look at it and ask yourself, could I actually do this idea? So if your idea is start, a new airline that uses nuclear-powered engines, well, that's hard, okay? It's like you're going to have to raise $1 billion. You're going to have to invent nuclear-powered engines. You're going to have to go through regulatory hurdles. I wouldn't choose that as my first idea, but go for it if you're inspired. But pick an idea that's simple and wouldn't take a lot of money. I mean, look at the 3 things I talked about, and I have a couple others I didn't even talk about. We started a publishing company and other stuff. But pick an idea that doesn't look like it would cost a lot of money. Like HowStuffWorks cost $0. It costs $20 a month to start HowStuffWorks. Not a big investment. I told you the consulting company we started with $400. Find a simple idea, doesn't take a lot of money, and then manifest it in some form. Create a prototype. Write it up and put it on the web and see if anybody reads it. Just instantiate it in some way and find out if anyone cares about it. Because here's the thing that I have learned from doing a lot of business stuff, is that there's no way to know what people cares about until you manifest it in the real world and let the marketplace tell you we care or we don't. There's no way to find that out except to do it. Manifestation is the only technique, and it's really frustrating. You can do focus groups, you can plan, you can do all kinds of stuff, but the only place to actually know if anyone cares is to put it in the marketplace and see if anybody will give you money for it, or will come look at it, or will tell their friends about it, or whatever. And then you tweak it and you grow it. I call this resonance. It applies to every business idea. You put the idea out there and it either resonates with people or it doesn't. HowStuffWorks happened to resonate with a certain audience. Think about Netflix. How many of you use Netflix? A lot, right. I use Netflix. So why did it resonate? If you sit and you actually think about that, like for me, the reason why it resonated for me is because it got rid of all the little stupid, niggly, uncomfortable problems that go with going to a video store and renting a video. You don't have to drive, you don't have to pay late fees, you get stuff pretty quickly. It solved all these problems, and since it solved all those problems, I was willing to give them X dollars per month to do that service. And I could tell a friend about it, and a friend would say, oh yeah, that does sound cool, and they would go do it. So that's resonance. When I tell a friend and they go do it, or when someone sees an ad and they respond to it, it's resonating. And that is the key to starting a business that's going to work, but the only way to know if it resonates is to get it into the marketplace. So here are some quotes that I think encapsulate the essence of starting a business. This first one, 80% of success is showing up, comes from Woody Allen. So this is true because, first of all, if you never show up, then nothing's ever going to happen. Like if you don't actually say, I'm going to start a business, and then actually start it, then obviously a business is never going to happen. But as soon as you take that step and you get started, you have opened the door to whatever possibilities the universe is going to bestow upon you. I mean, you find out if the marketplace cares about your idea. The only way to find out is to take that first step. So just saying, I'm going to do it, and then putting enough energy in it to get past the first step, 80% of folks don't ever do that. That's why 80% of success is showing up. So you get past that first thing. Okay, the failure part. 9 out of 10 businesses fail because you don't know what's going to resonate until you put it out in the marketplace. So 9 out of 10 ideas, I guess, don't resonate, is the statistic. That's a fact of life. But on the other hand, if you want to look at it the flip side, 10% of ideas do succeed, and that's really, really good odds. Compare that to the lottery or to, lots of other things. 10% probability of success, where success equals $1 million or more dollars in your pocket, is not bad odds. So you start your first idea, there's a 9 out of 10 probability it's going to fail. But you learn a lot from doing that first idea. You learn how to start a business, how to manage money, whatever. You learn all this stuff, and then you go to start your second one, and it's a lot easier. It fails. You start your third one. It reaches some modicum of success. Or, maybe it succeeds wildly, whatever. Some people, it catches on the first one. Some people, they have to try 20 times. That's just the way it is. So you just accept that failure is a part of the process, and you go from failure to failure until something finally works. That is the nature of starting businesses. And then there's this thing about luck. Okay? I wrote a set of tutorials and put them on an FTP site, and I got a contract from a publisher. What is that? That's luck. That's not planning. That's not experience. That's nothing. That's just pure, raw, unadulterated luck. You spun a wheel or you rolled a dice, and bang, a contract arrives on your desk. But you can't get the luck unless you roll the dice. You have to manifest your thing in some way and then see what happens. So what was the chance that when I published a book on motif that very month Wall Street made the global decision to move to motif on Unix workstations? 0. That's the chances. But it just worked out. That's pure, unadulterated luck. If it hadn't happened that way, I wouldn't be telling you that story, would I? I would be telling you a different story. The only stories you hear about are the ones that actually worked out, but they all have this little bit of luck in them, and you gain access to the luck by trying something. And then I would add this fourth saying, which is, it helps to talk to people. Okay, the thing I have learned from starting businesses and being in business and seeing other businesses start and talking to people who are starting businesses and so on is The more folks you know, and the more people you talk to, and the more business cards you collect in a little Rolodex, and the more emails that come into your mailbox spontaneously because you're trying something, the better. Because by knowing people and networking with people and leveraging, shared abilities between people and whatever, you amplify your own ability. You make yourself more powerful. So let's say you need money. Okay, you need venture capital. How are you going to get venture capital? You got to know somebody. Okay, that's a fact. You have to know somebody. So there's just no other way to get venture capital. So now let's say you have an idea and it's starting to ramp up and you think you need venture capital. Well, now you know me, right? If you needed to, you could write to me and say, I don't know what I'm doing, but I need $3 million. And I think I have a great idea that could use $3 million. Well, I could put you in touch with somebody else who could put you in touch with somebody else who could get you to a venture capital person who would be able to give you that $3 million. I'm not going to give you $3 million, so it's just a fact. Okay, so, but by knowing people, you gain access to all these other networks. If your company is going to IPO, you can't IPO a company without knowing people. It's impossible. You have to know people. So you practice, you learn, whatever, how to get to know people and how to relate to people, and it helps you in business. The more people you know, the better, and talking to people is good. Share your ideas with people. Let them shoot them down, or let them tell you new ways to think about it, or let them introduce you to other people who are trying to do the same thing, or whatever. People and talking to people is good. So, 90% of us are going to walk out of this room today and we are not going to start businesses. It's just, I don't know why, it's just a fact. We go home, we turn on the television, we go to bed, and by tomorrow we forget about this and it just goes off the calendar or whatever. But if you're in the 10% and you want to get a business going, how do you get yourself moving? Okay, step one, start reading. And if you have an iPod, I would do it by getting books on CD and loading them onto my MP3 player of choice and just listening to books. Here are 4, there are hundreds of them. Read or listen to books about business. Listen to them multiple times. Don't worry if they're good or bad. You'll listen to it, and if it's all bad stuff, you'll stop listening and you'll move on to the next one. Just start absorbing information about businesses. You can read, Rich Dad, Poor Dad is a great mindset book. These are all great mindset books. Or read stories about people who've started businesses. I particularly love, I can't remember the name of it, but Dave Thomas wrote his autobiography on how he started Wendy's. Okay, how did that restaurant come to be? Started with one guy. I mean, it's a fantastic, unbelievable story. He was an orphan. He started working in restaurants at age 12. He left his adopted parents and lived in a hovel. I mean, it's amazing how he started that business. Read books from people who've started businesses. Lots of them like to write about it. And just start reading. Step 2, look around you. Look, like you're going to leave and you're going to interact with businesses every day, all the time, doing all kinds of stuff. Look at ads that arrive in your mailbox. Look at ads on TV. Look at businesses you go to. Figure out how are they making money and what are they having to spend to make that money. Put the businesses in categories. This business is another business that puts stuff on shelves and sells it. This business is another business that makes a kind of food and sells it. This business is a business that gets in the middle of transactions and takes money from people. This business, whatever. And then start thinking of ways you could change or improve those different ideas. Just by looking at other businesses that are working, you learn about reality. You gain understanding of reality. Talk to other people. Start meeting people and talking to people that own other businesses, that are entrepreneurs. Find rich people and talk to them. How did they get rich? A lot of people like to really talk about how they got there. Anytime you find someone who's successful, say, how the heck did you get here? And let them tell you their story. They're all completely random, by the way. It has nothing, it's just all this ups and downs and luck and chance and all this stuff happens, and they run into a person on an airplane and that person connects them to this person. It's crazy, but if you talk to it, you'll see how random it all is. Meet potential partners, potential customers, suppliers. Just talk to people. Talk to anybody you can who has a business or is thinking about starting a business or whatever. Ask questions about everything you can imagine and just sit on Google and answer them. Like, for example, see, this is one of my props. I have in my car a set of screwdrivers that a person invented. See, it didn't work. So, this person invents this screwdriver that's hollow, and it shoots a light through the center of it so that you can see what you're trying to screw if it's dark. Okay, the person had that idea. They actually took it all the way through the process of getting the thing manufactured in China, and it came over here in this giant shipping container. So it's metal, hollow metal pieces that are the bits. It's a handle with a laser inside of it and a light. It's a case that holds all of it. Got all that done. One guy figured out how to go to China and get this whole thing manifested in reality. Go figure out, what would it take to build something in China? Just ask the question and then go research it and see, how would you get something made if you wanted to get something made in China? What does it take to open a store or a restaurant or something? Call up some radio stations or TV stations and find out, hey, I'm thinking about advertising. How much does it cost to run 4 ads a day for 2 weeks on your network during prime time? I have no idea. But if you know that, then you can plug that into a business plan later on and do something with it. And then finally, sketch out business ideas in spreadsheets. Now, a lot of the stuff I talk about, where I did stuff, I had no plan. Mr. Leatherman had no plan. Mr. eBay didn't have any plan. I mean, a lot of people start with absolutely no plan. But if you like planning, get out a spreadsheet, plug in some numbers, and just see what happens. A lot of times, you learn some really interesting things, especially about existing companies, like McDonald's or somebody like that. You can just pretend, what does McDonald's look like on a spreadsheet basis? How much money do they make a day? How much do they spend on food, on advertising, on employees, on real estate, whatever? And just sketch out different ideas. You can take a whole class on business planning. You can get books on it, whatever. Look at that. That clock says it's 8 o'clock, so either I have gone way late or it's wrong. But I have some information on marshallbrain.com, which you're welcome to peruse. My email address is there. If you have an idea and would like to get some feedback on it, and not 1,000 people write to me, then I do respond to email. I get a lot of email and I do respond to it. So I will be around after this. If you want to go see about election stuff, I completely understand that. But if you have questions that you would like to ask right now, I'll hang around for a half hour and an hour if I need to. But thank you for coming today.